What's up everyone, Master Fox here today, talking about the top 10 rulings that a lot of players don't know about. So there's no need to deliberate anymore, let's get right into it. Number 10, contact fusing with face down monsters. So this applies mainly to Gladiator beasts as well as Ritual beasts. And as a veteran Gladiator beast player, I knew this ruling from a long time ago. But it seems that many people don't actually know this, likely because there hasn't been a meta deck in a long time that used the contact fusion. It's been over 7 years since Gladiator beasts were last meta, so this is understandable, at least until Ritual beasts became a thing. Even now though, most people don't seem to know this, so for those of you who use any of these two decks, this can be heavily used to your advantage. The main play back in the day was setting a Bestiari before going into Gizaris, just to make sure your Bestiari wouldn't be hit by something like a bottomless trap hole. Number 9. Entering the battle phase with no monsters. Yes, you can actually enter the battle phase with no monsters on your side of the field, and this is really only applicable for a card like Juragato, or if you really needed to enter the battle phase to go into your main phase 2 for certain types of effects that would only be available to you in the main phase 2. So yes, you can actually enter the battle phase with no monsters. Number 8. Solemn Warning being ineffective against several different types of continuous cards. For example, Solemn Warning cannot hit cards like Miracle Fertilizer, Infernity Launcher, or Valhalla Hall of the Fallen, or something like Ancient City Rainbow Ruins. This is because upon activation, none of these cards has the effect of special summoning a monster or summoning a monster at all. So therefore, Solemn Warning cannot be activated on any of these cards because their initial activation does not perform a summon. This is in contrast to a card like Macrocosmos, who could perform a summon on its initial activation. Number 7. Farfa versus Trap Monsters. So Farfa, or any type of card that performs a temporary banishing effect, something like Destiny Hero Doomlord for example, banishing a trap monster means the monster will actually be destroyed upon return, because as it's being returned to the field, it no longer has the effect of being a monster, and it being returned as a trap card into a monster zone is not possible, so these monsters will automatically be destroyed upon their return. Number 6. Book of Moon versus Trap Monsters. Continuing our trap monster theme, you can actually use Book of Moon on a trap monster, but it'll only be set back to the spell and trap zone again, but it cannot be activated until the end of the turn, just like a normal trap card that you set that turn. Number 5. Abyssal Designator rulings. If Abyssal Designator is activated, calling something impossible, such as Divine Dinosaur, your opponent still must reveal their entire deck, even though there is no card in the entire game that has this combination of type and attribute. This is useful if you want to gather information, but other than that, taking the -1 is probably not worth it. Number 4. Trigger effects and location. This is a North America ruling only though, although I think it's very important to know, especially if you play in North America, even though I don't especially agree with the ruling. Trigger effects will start in a new chain after the current chain has finished resolving. This is common in all territories. If a trigger is no longer true after the previous chain finishes resolving though, that trigger effect cannot activate. This is only applicable in North America, as I mentioned before. For example, Dante detaches a graph and mills 3 cards. The opponent will then chain their DD Crow, targeting that detached graph. So in resolving the chain, graph will be banished due to the effect of DD Crow, then Dante will gain 1500 attack from his own effect. In the new chain, graph is no longer in the graveyard, so it cannot be activated. If you are from Europe or the OCG though, this ruling doesn't apply, and graph will still resolve as long as he is still in a public space. If, for example, instead of a DD Crow, say he chains some effect that shuffled graph back into the deck, then that graph would not be able to resolve even if he was being played in the OCG or in Europe. Number 3. Number 86 versus Altair. So number 86, Rangomianad, can actually attack if it has 3 materials, even if Altair was used previously that turn. This is because Altair's effect is not a condition. Altair's effect is just that. It's an effect. Altair's effect is actually a lingering effect that applies to all of your monsters for the rest of the turn. Because number 86 is unaffected by other card effects, it will not be affected by this lingering effect of Altair. Number 2. Abysamegalo, Marksman, and Dragoons versus Stardust. So as you know, the Atlanteans will resolve in a new chain after the effect that used them as a cost resolves. In this example that I'm using, say you use Abysamegalo's effect to special summon itself and discard Marksman and Dragoons. Megalo will activate at this time, and then after it has finished resolving, the two cards that you use as a cost for Megalo's effect will resolve from the graveyard. During their resolution, you get to pick the chain link order. So what you can do is if you put your Marksman as chain link 1 and your Dragoons as chain link 2, then your opponent doesn't have a chance to respond to your Marksman with Stardust, because Stardust has to chain directly to the effect that it's negating. And the fact that there's a Dragoons effect in between your Marksman and the Stardust prevents it from having its activation window being correct. This is how you dodge Stardust using chain link order. This also applies to something like a Gizaris tagout. Say your opponent had something like 2 monsters on the field, one which you could have ran over with a Gizaris, and the other one was a Stardust. You run over the monster with Gizaris, then when you tag out, you tag into a Murmillo and any other gladiator beast that has a mandatory effect. Even something like a Laquari, I believe, has a mandatory effect of the attack gain. So then what you do is you put your Murmillo as chain link 1 and your Laquari as chain link 2, and then your Laquari will get the attack gain and your Murmillo will target the Stardust to destroy it. And then since the Laquari's effect is in between your Murmillo and Stardust, Stardust cannot chain to negate Murmillo's effect. Last but not least, we have number 1. Accumulated Fortune can chain to itself. No, this isn't a stupid ruling. In fact, it actually makes perfect sense. So here's the text on Accumulated Fortune. Activate only as chain link 4 or higher. Draw 2 cards. You cannot activate this card if multiple cards or effects with the same name are in that chain. So if you already activated 1 copy of Accumulated Fortune as chain link 4, then there's only 1 card with the name Accumulated Fortune that exists in that chain. Before being able to legally activate a second copy of Accumulated Fortune, the activating condition requires you to not have multiple cards with the same name in that chain, which of course you don't, at least not yet, because there's only 1 Accumulated Fortune in that chain. Therefore, the activating condition is valid, and you may activate a second Accumulated Fortune as chain link 5 or any higher chain link. It's only after this second copy of Accumulated Fortune has been activated that there now exists 2 copies of Accumulated Fortune in the chain. After this, you will not be able to activate a third copy, as the conditions for activation are now no longer correct. If you were to try to activate a third Accumulated Fortune, when it checks the chain link, it sees that there's already 2 cards with the name Accumulated Fortune in it, and so the activation cannot be completed. So that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you guys learned something, and leave a comment in the comment section below. Give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys in my next video. Thank you.